continues. We will move to our next session, which is a panel on institutional partnerships to optimize space for the SDGs. Institutional partnerships to optimize space for the SDGs. Can I ask our speakers for this session to turn on their cameras so I can move them to the stage? I'm trying to figure out what is happening when my computer is not allowing me to let me change the view, see if that helps. Gallery. There we go. All right. Thank you. Okay. So I think we have on this session, we have I'm looking. Okay, so we have this morning. Today is the 22nd or the 21st? Thank you. This morning we have, I think this information I have is incorrect. So I think Dr. Zarif is supposed to be on, Thomas Trimwood is on, and some other people are missing. All right, so we go start with who we have on the call at the moment. Let me see if anybody else who should be here is backstage. No. All right, so Thomas Trimwood is on. Sharif is on. Okay, you're Sharif. Okay, thank you so much. I was seeing your last name here, but your first name on the thing. All right, thank you. All right, so I am going to turn the floor over, and our is it a conversation or speakers? A panel discussion or panel discussion. So let me begin by asking Dr. Rimbo to open us up with your thoughts on where do you see us moving forward in terms of institutional. Introduce yourself, please, and then let's see from your perspective. If you introduce where you're coming from and what is your role in building out an ecosystem of this sort.
Okay, so yeah, hi everyone. I'm not a doctor though. I don't have a PhD. So my name is Thomas. I'm an engineer. I'm coming from France and Italy, but I studied in Switzerland. I studied mathematics. I worked at the European Space Agency. I also worked at the European Organization for Nuclear Research, which is CERN, and that's where I'm working. Where I'm working right now. And I'm actually working in the group which is doing exactly the institutional partnerships. So the name of our group is Knowledge Transfer. The goal of our group is to transfer the knowledge and the technologies that we develop at CERN in our institution towards the industry for, in particular, aerospace and environment. So that's kind of fitting for the space sustainable development goals.
Yeah, thank you so much. Same question to you, Dr. Mohammed. Same question to you, Dr. Mohammed. So in a brief introduction, you're muted. There you go. We're not hearing you. We're not hearing you. We're not hearing you. Dr. Mohammed, we're not hearing you. Dr. Mohammed? Dr. Mohammed? We're not hearing you. Dr. Mohammed, if you could pause a minute, or maybe it's not hearing at all. Okay, I will, could you Man the field for me, Dr. Rimbo. Let me try and fix him backstage, and you can talk a little bit about your work, continue the conversation. Present as if you're presenting, because I have to get him to fix his sound. Thank you. I'll be back.
Okay, so should I continue the talk then on
Yes,
my side?
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. Please go on. Other people are online.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Yeah, so maybe just to talk a little bit more about what we do. So at CERN, maybe people don't necessarily know CERN. So what is CERN? CERN is the European Organization for Nuclear Research. What we are doing is mostly physics. So we are studying what happens when you collide particles together, and we are trying to recreate basically the origin of the universe. So trying to understand what the universe is made of, what are the constituents of matter. And to do this research, we develop a lot of technologies, so like particle detectors, accelerators, computers, algorithms. So we have all of these technologies that are interesting for particle physics, and we also think that they are also interesting for society. And an example of this for space is in our accelerators, we have a lot of radiation. So we need a way to monitor this radiation, to measure it. And this is also useful in space where you have a lot of radiation. So we are doing partnerships between
Yes.
CERN and companies to bring our technology to monitor the radiation to this company, which can then send it to space for different applications. And we have different projects like this for space, for sustainability, and for projects which are at the crossroad between space and sustainability. So, for instance, we are developing models, machine learning models, or computing models in general to model the climate and to understand how we can better respond against disasters or better forecast the climate, which can be useful for many different kinds of applications.
All right, so we've been joined by Coyote Babalola. The question is, first of all, introduce yourself. We're talking about institutional partnerships to promote the agenda of space for the SDGs. Could you say what organization you're with and your perspective on how we might begin that conversation?
Thank you, everyone. It's a good thing to be here this morning. I hope you can hear me clearly. Am I
Yes, we
audible?
can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Fine. So, my name is Engineer Babalola Kayode. I'm a fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, and I am the national chairman of the Nigerian Institution of Space Engineers. The institution is a division of the Nigerian Society of Engineers here in Nigeria. And vision, our mission, objective all in one together is to be the melting point of all operators in the space ecosystem in Nigeria. Everybody who has one role to play in the ecosystem is being galvanized by our institution. We have people from the Defense Space Administration, people from NIGCOMSAT, people from NASDA, National Space Research Development Agency, people from the military, people from the academia, people from the industry, who have one role or the other to play in the space ecosystem. So we do a lot to ensure that the country, especially, is able to tap into the potentials of the space system to advance the SDG, to advance workplace relevance, and to advance all that is available in the space sector to ensure that the maximum benefits that come from the space sector, space ecosystem, space technology is enhanced by the country. So that's what we do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for entry. Chioma Ezigbo. All right. Did I massacre your name? Let's start with you, please.
All right. Hi, everybody.
Okay, something. Okay, go ahead.
Great. Hi, everybody. Good morning.
Do you have two things on? Chioma, do you have two devices on?
It's just.
Okay, you have to turn off one because we're hearing a feedback.
I think you need to mute yourself.
Okay. Yes. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I like to, when these things happen in these conversations, I like to say, like yesterday we had an issue with sound as well. We weren't hearing. So I had to be typing everything in the chat. I said, pretend you're in Mars, okay? There was a 7-minute delay. I'm very active in analog astronaut community. So we're also always trying to simulate stuff. So this is very interesting to see. Now let me see if I can bring back in Dr. Mohammed. Maybe his sound is working now. Let's see if I can bring him back on. Dr. Mohammed, all right, let's try you again, sir. Could you turn your mic on? Yes. And I'm not hearing you. I'm seeing your mouth, but I'm not hearing you. Something is wrong with your device. Because we're not here. Are you hearing me? Are you hearing me? Okay. All right. So in the meantime, we're not hearing you, Dr. Mohammed. Dr. Mohammed, not hearing you. Okay, I'm Chuma. In the meantime, if you could go ahead, please. I'm going to text him again.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. So my name is Chuma Izibo, and I'm here on behalf of SDGS Nigeria, that's Space Generation Advisory Council. And what we do basically is we are a global body of young people trying to galvanize our voices to contribute to the conversation going on about space globally, but more particularly trying to localize some of the activities we do. So that's why we have SGSE at the regional level, SGSE Africa, and of course at the national level. So I'm national point of contact for SGSE Nigeria. And I think this topic is like really important because we can't, young people cannot like walk alone to do what we want to do in space. So it's very important that we have institutional partnerships between the body of young people and also bodies like governmental bodies, non-governmental bodies, universities, basically. So yeah, happy to be here today, and I hope we have like a very fruitful conversation. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, so we talked about institutional partnerships. And let me try one more time, Dr. Mohammed. Let me see if I can hear you now. Dr. Mohammed? He's still not hearing. Okay, so we can't hear you. And I think he's not hearing me. So let us, when I'm now engaged in a small institutional partnership project, and I realize that it's not as easy as it looks because, first of all, every institution has its own protocol for partnerships. What has been your experience? Let's begin with Dr. Brimbo in terms of partnerships with Africa in particular, African institutions in particular.
So that's actually a good question. On our side, for now, I think as far as I know, we have not had any partnership with African countries yet. So CERN is kind of this strange European body. So we are mostly focused on European partnerships, let's say. But it doesn't mean that the project that we do not have any impact on Africa. So I was mentioning a bit earlier this model that we have been developing to model the climate, and this has direct implication for crop monitoring, for instance, in agriculture. So actually this project will continue with the World Food Programme in order to model the yield of so the production of different crops, which can be useful in African countries. So we do not have institutional partnerships with African institutions, but we have projects which can have an impact on Africa.
Let me ask you another question another way because I want to follow this thought through. So we know that in Europe itself, countries are at different levels of sophistication. Certainly we know the Northern European countries are very advanced of, say, a country like Greece or Portugal, for example. So in terms of institutional partnerships with the more developed countries in Europe and lesser, what has been your experience in terms of trying to bridge those challenges that might be transferable to beginning to work with Africa?
Yeah. I think that's a very good point. So indeed, in Europe, you have very different countries with different levels of, I don't know, like of richness, let's say. So which can make some partnerships maybe more challenging than others, because at the end of the day, even if it's not the end goal, you still need some funding, actually, some resources to make the project. And so in that case, for some countries, it's quite easy because the funding is basically there with the company, so there is not much to do. In other countries, so for instance, you mentioned in Portugal or in Greece, sometimes we need to find the funding through different ways. So a different way could be the European Commission. The European Commission opens different calls for EU projects, so European level projects. So basically the commission says, okay, so we have this amount of money that we are prepared to offer to different players who can build the project together around this specific topic. And so then in that case, we would apply with a Portuguese company, for instance, and try to get this funding through Europe. So that's a way, for instance, to get the different partnerships and the different projects with countries and entities more generally with different levels of maturity, let's say.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, Coyote Babalola, this question is for you. And we're talking about then space SDG partnerships in particular. What makes partnerships in this area effective in your perspective in the African context? In the within Africa, no, not international with another country, but within Africa itself. And do you have any examples you can share that have worked?
Yeah, well, for us here, my institution is more in the forefront of advocacy to push the space program for the MVC's success and acceptability. Now, what has been working for us is the message of what the space can offer to the country, what space technology can offer to the citizens, what benefits and advantages that are available and inherent in the space ecosystem. This we've been able to do using some form of models. So over the years, we ensure that we have regular interaction with these major stakeholders in the private space, in government space, and in the academia. So we run concurrently workshops, we run seminars, we run webinars to create and increase the awareness so that there can be widespread acceptability of the space program. Mind you, we all know that the space programs are very, very capital intensive. To start with, it's not very cheap. So you need to get the buy-in of those who will fund this enterprise before we now begin to get the benefits. Sometime last week, my institution paid a courtesy call on the DG of NASDA, the Director General of National Space Research Development Agency, to sensitize them further on what we are doing in the institution. And what we were able to agree on in that meeting was that sometime this year, in a couple of months from now, we're going to have a program that we're going to use to actually showcase, project, and show to the world one of their key programs, that is a planetarium program, because this is a program that we know will bring more awareness to the entire country on what the space system has to offer the country. Mind you, the agency is also involved in Earth observation management and remote sensing. So they too, they know what this is going to do to the country. So they are happy to partner with us as an institution to also promote and project what they do to the entire country. Over the years, the institution, using the parent body, is able to also canvass for continuous funding and support for the space program in Nigeria so that we can make the right investment early enough so that by the time we are through the incubation period, we'll begin to harvest the results that will come for the space sector. So we do a lot of engagement, enlightenment, advocacy to make sure that the space system and space program is acceptable to the wide spectrum of stakeholders who will need to provide some level of support for the program to succeed eventually. That's part of what we do in our institution. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to throw a question out for both you and Thomas to think about while I speak to have Tiamo say something. Think about this question of metrics and measuring and having to prove viability or necessity for financing. And the question that popped into my head is, are the metrics that we're using suitable for today's environment? Because sometimes we're using old measuring sticks to measure new issues. So there's a thought. So think about it while I ask Chioma, from your perspective. I noticed that Dr. Babalola did not mention anything about civil society in this conversation. He says academia. So we're talking about getting young people who are not necessarily still in school. They might be involved in other things. How, from your perspective, do you see your role as a young person in part of an ecosystem that is involved with development training, creating institutional partnerships with the rest of Nigeria and around Africa?
Thank you very much for that question. So if I understand, you're asking what is my role as basically trying to create bridge the gap between.
Well, not your personal role, but the role of organizations like SJC. You are youth enabling education organization. So I know that one of the things you do is certainly have to support the knowledge development, right? But Dr. Babalola did not mention civil society. He mentioned academia in particular. So you're no longer necessarily in academia. So what is your role, I'm saying, in terms of a civil society organization in developing institutional partnerships with let's say, the status quo organizations? Because I assume that youth have a role to play in this, you would say, right?
Thank you very much for that question. Okay, so first of all, I think I need to start with stating that fundamentally, I think what young people, for us at SDGS Nigeria, and I believe for a couple of other SDGS countries in Africa, we are trying to build the space knowledge. So space education is mostly what we do, because we believe that if people know what space is about, they are able to actually get involved. So there will be need for partnership, because if people don't know what you're talking about, they don't know there's potentials in probably doing a project and how it could impact everybody on the continent positively, they may not want to come on board. So first of all, when we get on board for trying to secure partnerships for SJC Nigeria, or like SJC generally, we are trying to see how we can bridge that knowledge gap. But even more so, I think SGSC, particularly SGSC Nigeria, plays a very important role in trying to create institutional partnership. Although we have a couple of things in the works, but we know that to meet the directors of some of the organizations, whether it's governmental organizations or like generally companies, to invest in some of the things that young people are doing, we realize that we need a platform, and that's what SDGC Nigeria does. So what we are doing is we are using the platform of SDGC to bridge the gap, speak to the people in the government, in the private sector, and tell them, oh, this is what young people are doing. We do not have the fund, but we have the talent, basically. And if you invest in us, I mean, this is the indices, this is what you get after a couple of months or years. We give you like the timeline, and then you decide if you want to invest in it. So SGS in Nigeria plays a very, very important role in trying to bridge the gap between the rest of the world and young people, since it's an organization that is particularly tailored around people aged between 18 to 35. Thank you.
All right, so I'm trying to find people who are lost in cyberspace, and we're not seeing them. Here he is. If you're going to turn on your camera, Coyote, please turn on your camera in order to draw. There you go. You were already in the room. You just have to turn your camera on. Go ahead. Yes.
All right. So if I may quickly add to what my friend just mentioned, maybe I skipped it when I was talking to you. So we also have partnership with a couple of people who play in that space. That's the private sector. And so there's this group called Junior Astronaut Limited that we've been talking to, that we've been working with, and they are in the process of having what they call NASA Space Apps Challenge. Now they want to actually bring up youngsters who are very, very, very hot up there, who have technology solutions in their head, but there is a need for the platform to actually showcase this. So we are almost adding finishing touches to what we want to do, to bring them together in a room for over a period of time, maybe 1 month, maybe 2 months. We're still trying to figure that out so that we can challenge their brain, challenge their resources, challenge their intellect to bring up solutions that will actually be fitting into the space ecosystem. So it does a number of things. It increases the awareness of education in the space, increases what we are seeing as solutions and what can be done, and the inherent advantages that is in the space sector. And there's one other institution that we're working with. I can't pick the name straight away now, but I can tell you that we are also working with those who are in this space to also ensure that we maximize the benefits of the space technology and the space ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you. So back to the metrics question that I asked, because we're talking about things like financing and challenges. We talk about issues of what is an effective partnership. Both Thomas especially and Coyote, what might be some thoughts you could offer in terms of really rethinking, are we using the right metrics to see what is successful? Because sometimes I find that the development assistance community is stuck in an old rubric, but those rubric does not necessarily apply to what we're trying to do today. So do you have any thought? Do you think what we have is adequate, or do you think that there might be some things that might want to be reevaluated for the relevance? Because after all, space technology, we know it's expensive. Everybody says it's expensive. But if it's so important to our thrival as a species, then maybe we need to be valuing something else other than just the cost. What is our return on investment, perhaps? So your thoughts. Thomas, you want to take it first? And then I go to you, Coyote.
Yeah, okay. If you want, I can start.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an interesting question. So yeah, space technology, that's very expensive, as you say. So the metrics can be a bit hard to grasp sometimes. I think there are two kind of metrics, I would say. So there are the metrics on the project management side, and there are the metrics on the technical side. So really on what you want to achieve. So on the project management side, so basically what you are saying in like when you build a partnership with a company and you say, okay, so after 1 year we need to have achieved this, this, and this. After 2 years we need to have achieved this, this, and this. I would say that from my perspective, I think here the metrics are still relevant. I think it's quite straightforward as long as it's agreed on by the two partners and that it's kind of feasible. I think it's okay. On the technical side, I think that's where the problem lies. So I think you mentioned that space technology and space in general is necessary for the thriving of the human species. But I think now it's getting more and more important also for the basically the fight against climate change and all of the different problems that are linked to it, in particular in Africa with the different with the droughts, the problems with agriculture, the problems with the insects, like all the different kinds of disaster, right? And the problem is that this is getting out of hand, I think. So the metrics that we have for 1 day, for today, they might be outdated in 6 months. So everything is changing very fast, very quickly. And that makes things very difficult also to plan and then also to build partnership around, because usually a partnership takes, I don't know, 1 year maybe to build and then 3 years to complete. So in that span, the metrics might have changed 5 times. So I think that's the big problem. So we have to kind of look ahead, look in the future, which is always difficult. But yeah, I think it's also important to be open to changing the metrics, updating them during the partnership itself.
Coyote, what might you add to this, or what might you say contradict, if anything?
Following to where Thomas stopped, I like to say that what works is for us to have projection. Absolutely, there's need for a projection for whatever project you want to do. You have a 2-year projection, you have a 3-year projection, you have 5-year projection, depending on the lifespan of the project you're looking at. But what is key and very important is to agree as stakeholders to come for periodic evaluation and re-evaluation. Because even the technology itself, if you have one today, in the next couple of months, maybe 3, 4, 5 months from now, if you're not careful, it's becoming obsolete. Something new has come up. So for you to be in tandem with what is happening globally, then you must make room for continuous improvement, continuous iteration, and continuous engagement so that we can reflect the reality we have on ground per time. And it may not be within the agreed timeline, but if there are things that have come up that needs us to come and sit together, I don't think it should be a problem. So we should all agree and keep a very open mind that there's possibility of change. That if we must succeed, and that's the reality, if we must succeed, then we must agree to come to table to discuss from time to time. Because if we stick to what we have before, it may not work. For instance, there are countries that are going through some economic situations. Maybe their currency is being devaluated. You have IMF policies you have to implement that will change the dynamics of funding. Then we must agree to come and discuss over and over again so that we can achieve results. Maybe you want to scale down, maybe you want to adjust, maybe you want to amend, maybe you want to also reshape what you have agreed on before. But ultimately, if we have success in mind, then we must agree to come and start talking and keep talking until we get to our final destination, which is success. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask Chioma to chime in on the same topic of how we really measure what success looks like, because SDGS, I think, is a fairly successful model. Mind you, they're getting a lot of funding from donors, especially in the private sector, that are saying, well, this is going to be our workforce of the future, right? Whereas I have the sense that the private sector in Africa has not necessarily seen the same level of understanding of the critical need to support certainly the student groups that are doing this kind of relationships. So as I think about barriers again, the issue of barriers, what, Chairman, are you thinking about? What can we learn from the SDGS experience, which is really coming out of a US and European model, that might be useful for developing that with the African private sector? I mean, there is an African private sector, African chambers of commerce, there's African industrial organizations, there's a petroleum people, there's a mining people. All of these people are supposed to be using space data, especially for the purposes of monitoring their environmental impact, I would assume. I mean, is there anything that you can offer as something we want to move forward on? Because we don't just want to look at the past, but is there something that you might want to offer from your observation as to how we might break this barrier, if you will, where the African private sector begins to see itself as benefiting from an investment in a knowledge gap or training, for example?
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so I just hope I'm able to answer this in a way that is very clear. But if it doesn't address the exact question you asked me, please feel free to clarify. But I think from what I understand from the question is basically what can we do to make the African private space sector to realize that space is something worth investing in. Yeah, and I think generally, again, I feel space education is very important. I usually would hamper about this. So when I got into space, I think I need to tell a bit of story. When I got into space, I think I started off with space law and space policy, because I mean, I'm a lawyer, so it was just common sense to, go through that line. But then as I got deeply into the industry, I just realized, particularly for Africa, that there is a lot of knowledge gap, and that's why people would not necessarily invest in the sector, because I mean, they don't know what they're investing in. So if as SDGS, what we are doing is we are trying to bridge that gap. So what we are doing is we are having workshops, we are having presentations, we are having outreach sessions where we try to speak to people. So here is there are two sides to it. So in the long run, when you speak to people aged between 18 to 35, these people are going to grow, probably grow beyond, not probably, they will grow beyond 35, and then they get to like invest in the sector, because I mean, we've built that knowledge. And then on the other hand, talking to people that are above 35 already, I tell them, oh, this is what is happening in Africa, and this is why you should invest. So what SGSC can do and is already doing to get the African private space sector to see, even though it's a high-risk industry, to see why they need to invest is we are trying to tell them, oh, this is what happens when you invest, or this is the kind of things that you should invest in, because I mean, it's profiteering, which is also something that we need to like try to align properly, because SGSC is a non-profit organization. So fundamentally, what we do is we get sponsorship and the rest of that towards like expanding the goals and mission of SGSC. But we have also recognized, particularly within the African region, that we can also speak to the private sector. We can make them understand that even though that what we do is non-profit and what you do is profit, you're interested in profit, you can actually invest in this sector and get your profit. I mean, again, it's a high-risk industry, but it's doable. People are doing it, particularly if we organize what we are doing around the peculiarities, which is particularly why we are doing what we are doing, because we understand that Africa has like specific peculiarities, and if you're not mindful of these peculiarities, you will fail. Sorry. So it's very important to take note of all of that. So again, what we are doing fundamentally is bridging the knowledge gap. So at SGSC, you're spreading the word and spreading the knowledge, and hope that at the end of the day, all of it comes together to make sure that we have like the fully incentivized private space sector. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just to let the audience know that if you have a question, please put it in the chat. There's a Q&A button. You can put your question in the chat. We have maybe time for one question or two questions, but now as we come to towards the end, we know that space and development enabler, that we know that most people, not necessarily everybody, understand that certainly if nothing else, their telephone needs space, the money transactions need space. And so let's talk about money transactions and banks in particular. They're benefiting very much the financial institutions from the space community. So a question that we have is, how can we get the financial institution and banks to participate in enabling these partnerships? I mean, I don't know that we've actually tackled them. How might we do that? The banks are benefiting maybe more than anybody else, because money transfer is probably one of the most heavily things that this thing is used for, right? Satellite data is used for money transactions all across Africa, right? M-Pesa and all the other cash transfer systems. How do we get them? What might be a mechanism by which we can engage them, maybe their technical officer? What are your thoughts? Just free-flowing thoughts here, because we really want to leave here with some maybe 2 or 3 points of entry for where do we go from here, what next? What are your thoughts about the banks and financial institutions? Anybody?
Okay, I can already start and give maybe
Yes.
a small point of view. So I think it ties quite well with what Choma was saying about the willingness of the private sector, and so in particular institutional partnerships, and like financial institutions and banks to invest in space. And I think a very good way to do that is for startups. So startups are these very small companies which are founded by a few people, sometimes 1 or 2 people. And the big thing with startup is that they have a very good idea, but they don't have money. So they would need an investor, and a financial institution or a bank could be one such partner, or more generally, an investor. So yeah, that could be a good way in my opinion. Because yeah, if you have a startup with an idea related to space, with applications in Africa, or more generally for climate change or for anything, and they need money, then that could be a good way.
Anybody else has anything else to add?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's fine. Mr. Mabula, please, you can go ahead.
You first. Go first. You first. You first. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so I wanted to, I'm very much interested in this question because as young people and as a young person, not just like, and I'm speaking for, I believe I'm speaking for a couple of young people too that are actively like in the space industry, like working on projects. I'm going to be speaking particularly from my point of view as an African and also as a Nigerian living in Nigeria. And the truth is, I like to think that the financial system is not exactly, this meeting is being recorded, okay, so I can't really put it that way. But I think the system is not really built to support young people, because there are some kind of, when you go to, let's say you want to do debt financing, working on a startup, and then you want to do debt financing and you want to take loans and the rest of that. When you walk into a bank, the reward is insane, especially considering that you are working in a high-risk industry that even some of us do not really understand how the space industry works. First of all, again, the space education is important. And secondly, we just have to like make sure that we build like a financial system that supports people. So before we get projects, I think this is like the point where we start speaking about the things that we really experience as young people. So to travel for conferences, I've had the opportunity to talk with Africans living both in Africa and outside of Africa, and it's a whole lot of drama, when people get scholarships and the whole policy thing about, oh, you need to come for the conference and then later on we'll boss you, and not beyond that too, but generally trying to like get the fund to travel. And then for many of them, they do not like really come from wealthy families, so they have to like depend on companies who hopefully sponsor them, and then they get to reimburse better from the scholarships, or looking generally to people to sponsor them. And you realize how even to attend conferences is difficult. Some of these conferences range the travel budget in between like $1,000 to about $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, depending on where you're traveling from. But if to just travel for conferences, we are finding it difficult to even access funds to go for these conferences where you get to like meet other people that you can potentially collaborate with on projects, then how much more it paints a bit of picture of how difficult it is to access funds to basically work on projects. So in summary, what I'm trying to say is the banks, the financial institutions have a big role to play. Not just the banks, the insurance companies, because I think space insurance is something that we do not really talk about all the time. At the long run, we believe that it's not just like a one-man show. Yeah, young people, we have like great ideas. We are energetic, want to come together and like build as much as we can, but we need the support of both the financial institution, the insurance companies, government, everybody needs to work together to make sure that at the end of the day, we are all succeeding and moving forward. Thank you.
Well, we have something we can certainly move forward on. So one last time for one last question.
I'm sorry, Dr. Claire. I think Mr. Babalola was going to say something before. I would really love to hear from him. So.
All right. So I'll do that in just
okay, go ahead. Yeah.
In just 1 minute.
Yes.
You see, the financial institution, I'm aware, as you can see, there are things that they take interest in, things that they fund, things that they support, things that they provide a lot of backing for. Now, it means the space ecosystem needs to do much more to understudy and find out how these other enterprises, these other projects get funded, get supported by the financial institutions. What have they done? How did they do? How did they get their buy-in? It means we need to show a bigger picture, show them that this is the bigger picture. This is the benefit that will come from you supporting this enterprise. This is what we will get in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years. Come to think of it, even your institution is a major beneficiary of the space ecosystem, the space solutions, and space products. So let it be in their faces. Your banks can operate from remote areas without hassles. You make money from those places, even though you have very little presence there. Okay, there are transactions that take place without you being there, on POS machines, on cash vending machines. transfers are being done, and you earn revenue from all of these transactions. So it won't be too much for you to keep supporting this structure that makes business easy for you. It's not a bad idea for you to also want to expand what will benefit from this system. But stakeholders need to see what it is for them as benefits, as what comes in for them. So we need to show them that, yes, you will benefit. Yes, you will reap. Yes, you will get from it, but you need to invest a little bit more for us to have more benefit from what you are doing. So let us see how others are able to get them to buy into what they are doing, to fund them, and to continue supporting them. So we must do much more to show that, yes, there's so much for them to benefit, and I can bet you that they will put their money in it and support the space programs. Thank you.
I'm wondering then, as we close, that perhaps we might really want to come back to the issue of metrics that matter. Because if it is that we're saying space for the SDGs about improving lives and banks as a beneficiary and other companies as beneficiaries, but in Africa, we're not really holding companies accountable to the people, planet, profits model, there might be, I think, room for those of us certainly in the civil society space sector, like SDGS and others. So I think we have a project here, Chioma. What we may want to do as SDGS and other non-profits like myself and others that work in space sectors, maybe have our own alliance within the African context that begins to come up with what we call scorecards, right? A scorecard approach, because that has worked effectively in the US and in Europe. In Europe, obviously, many companies are very much publishing their sustainability practices, their corporate social responsibility practices, but that's not so much the case in Africa. So perhaps that's something that we can offer, maybe develop some guidelines, some metrics, some new operating procedures or some things that we can put out. So I'd love to hear your feedback on that, Chioma, as well as Coyote and Thomas. Is that something that we in the civil society might want to put as a potential action that we can take?
I think Chioma is the best to answer here, so I would let her speak before maybe completing on my side.
All right, thank you. So I didn't want to go first because I think I went first for the other question. Okay, so if I understand the question correctly, you're asking if there is something non-governmental organizations or like civil societies can do to what now, Dr. Claire?
No, so the question is the issue of financing and support for programs, institutional partnerships that corporate Africa is not stepping up, I think, the way it should to support the knowledge transfers needed. And we know that banks have excess capital. The profit margins are not cheap. They're always passing the cost onto the consumers anyway. So the fact is that we're not seeing the level of reporting on their contributions to society. And given that space for the SDGs is a major, whether it's agriculture, whether it's GPS or whatever, and the fact that they're doing money transfers every day, and millions of people in Africa are using space to transact business through banks, and so banks are making a percentage of every transaction. So my question becomes, maybe it's up to us in civil society to create some kind of a reporting system that we can now maybe look at doing scorecards for these banks and other institutions to hold them accountable. If we put out something called sustainability scorecard for banks, for example, and SDGS and my nonprofit and other African nonprofits come together and say, this is not just one group, it's an alliance of nonprofits that are putting this out. What are your thoughts on something like that? The mining companies, the oil companies, they are all working in things that impact the environment. So we need to also hold them accountable for the fact that we need to use their data, space data, to monitor them as well.
Okay, thank you. So I think, first of all, I need to begin by saying that what I'm going to say is not a reflection of, all I've been saying is actually not a reflection of the stand of SDGS. So I'm speaking for myself as Chioma. So I think I will start off with saying that we can address that particular concern by realizing the metrics that already exist to make sure that companies reinvest in the society from which they're getting their profit from. So we have taxes, we have CSR, we have legislative, how do I put it, soft modeling. So where we have the government trying to like redirect how companies work, by releasing regulations and the rest of that. So if we understand this model, if we understand this pattern, we are able to understand, where do we come in to make them realize that according to the scoreboard, the companies, you guys are not like stepping up to what we expect from you. So I think I want to establish, probably because I'm a lawyer, but I want to establish that currently, I don't think I'm aware of any regulation or law that compulsorily say, companies, because I mean, these are private companies, private entities that say, you must invest in space because you get your profit from space. But like I said, it's more like an ethics scoreboard. So we are saying, if you are taking from these people, or if you are generating this kind of profit from the kind of business that you do within the continent or whatever, you should be able to like reinvest into that particular system. So it's more like CSR if you think about it. So again, how does CSR work? So CSR is the company saying, you know what, we realize how much we are taking from you, so we want to be able to give back to the community to say thank you for like supporting us within this particular region or like location. So I think if we understand how this is not something we have to do like, so in Nigeria, we say you can't do it by force. You can't compulsorily take money out of their pocket to say, you must give back to Africa or give back to Nigeria because you're taking money from this. But we can do it softly. So that is where the whole soft power thing comes from. So it's more like, I don't want to call it like a psychological, I don't think it qualifies as psychological sort of structuring, but I can say if you are able to say, okay, we have like a scorecard or a scoreboard, and like periodically, quarterly, yearly, we are able to say, these are the companies that are able to like give back to these communities. So it's something that the people working in the companies, private companies or private entities can go back during their board meetings, during their company meetings. They're able to say, there's a particular standard that is set, and then we've met that standard. So it encourages investment. It's all linked together. So what I'm trying to say is we may need the help of everybody. We will need the help of everybody to be able to popularize. So when you give popularity to the scoreboard, the ethics scoreboard, that's when people get interested in it. Because I mean, if it doesn't have how do I put it? If it doesn't have that popularity, so to say, I don't know if that's like the right word, but if it's not something that people care about, then the companies won't care about it. But the job that we have is to make sure that, this thing that we are calling like the ethics scoreboard or like whatever name we want to give it is something that regionally, it mustn't be globally, regionally, because we understand like the peculiarities of Africa. This is what happens here in Africa, and this is what we think companies should do to give back to the community. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, any last words? We've come to the end. Any closing thoughts?
Yes. One last word for me, please.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm happy that this matter is going to end in this way. We should have action item, what to do, what our next steps are supposed to be. And you've already done this. So we must arise and become an allied force, or allied forces as the case may be. We must come together to push an agenda that we want to see being actualized. That is in terms of getting funding and support from the financial sector, especially because of the pool of funds available in that sector. So maybe after now, we need to find a way to reconvene again behind the scene to begin to see how we need to come together, how we are going to drive this. Somebody should be in the forefront, pull us all together, and let's have an action plan on how to achieve this. Mind you, I know that sector also likes good PR. So they wouldn't want to be the negative books of anybody, because it also affects investment, it affects how people see them, affects their perception, and will also ultimately affect business in that sector. So I'm sure they will want to, in a way, ensure that they're in the good books of everybody who is there in the media. So we must be deliberate about this and see that we're able to put ourselves together and know how best to address this and get the attention that we need. How best to address this to get the attention that we need so that what we want to achieve can be achieved. So it's on you to drive us after now to achieve this particular goal that we have set for ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. So any last closing thoughts?
Maybe
Thomas, are you?
I can
Yes.
also just
Yes.
complete.
Yes.
So on again, as Choma, I'm not speaking on behalf of CERN. I'm speaking from my point of view. I think this idea of an alliance and a global scorecard or something similar, I think that's a good idea. I have to say it's something that doesn't exist also in Europe or in the US or in any other part of the world, as far as I know. There is research ongoing there. I think there are some initiatives here and there. There is one in Switzerland, for instance, but we are still very far from that. So I think any initiative, also local initiative from Africa, could also benefit Africa, but also the rest of the world. So it could be very useful. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much all, Thomas Rimbo from CERN, Kayode Babalola, and Chioma Ezigbo. I think I got it better this time. Thank you so much for your thoughts and the conversation. I think we have some things to move on, and we look forward to continuing the dialogue post the conference. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. It's nice to be here.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for the
Bye,
invitation.
everyone.
Bye.